big laughs, sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
A very busy show tonight. Should smacking children be illegal? We'll hear from all sides in our big question. Is Vladimir Putin close to defeat in Ukraine? I'll be asking my Mark Meets guest, SAS hero, author and TV star Phil Campion, a man mountain. In the news agenda with my all-star panel, are second homes morally wrong? And has the halo slipped for the Chancellor Rishi Sunak after a week to forget? And in my big opinion in 2 minutes' time, I'll be asking why we're not building more grammar schools. I'll see you after the headlines.
Good evening, I'm Miranda Shunker in the GB newsroom. The US president says we must prepare for the long fight ahead when it comes to the war in Ukraine. The US State Department is providing an extra $100 million to help civilian security in the country. Joe Biden met Ukrainian refugees and the Polish president in Warsaw to discuss the humanitarian response.
I visited your national stadium, where thousands of Ukrainian refugees are now trying to answer the toughest questions a human can ask. My God, what's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to my family? I saw tears in many of the mothers' eyes as I embraced them. They're young children. They're young children, not sure whether to smile or cry.
If Russia targets Ukraine's nuclear plants, the world is at risk. That's according to the mayor of Kiev, Vitaly Klitschko, and his brother Vladimir. The Klitschko brothers told GB News they're grateful to Britain and the US for support, but they need more.
We need much more weapons. We need much more help. We have to stop the Russians. The whole world surprised how tough Ukrainian army defend our homeland.
Well, in other news, calls are growing for the boss of P&O Ferries to quit as protests took place today at UK ports over the sacking of hundreds of staff.
What do we want? When do we want it? Now!
Well, meanwhile, a P&O ferry remains in dock in Northern Ireland for being unfit to sail over issues with vessel documents and crew training. The operator replaced 800 seafarers with agency staff last week. Prince William has signalled British support for Caribbean islands seeking to become republics during the royal tour. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge laid flowers at a memorial to remember the victims of Hurricane Dorian in the Bahamas in 2019. The Duke of Cambridge suggested a future decision by the country, Jamaica and Belize to break away from the monarchy will be accepted by the UK.
We support with pride and respect your decisions about your future. Relationships evolve, friendship endures.
And bus drivers in London will go on a 2-day strike from Monday after rejecting a pay offer. The action affects routes across South and Central London. Bus company Arriva offered workers a 1.5% pay rise, but unions say rising inflation means that counts as a real terms pay cut. Well, on TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Mark.
It is Saturday, March the 26th, and you are watching and listening to Mark Dolan Tonight. What a cracking evening of Saturday night entertainment we have for you. Lively debate, big stories and big fun, all in equal measure. Is Vladimir Putin close to defeat in Ukraine? I'll put that question to SAS hero, author and TV star Phil Campion, who is my Mark Meets guest tonight. Plus, reacting to the big stories of the day, my all-star panel tonight featuring three very old friends of mine. Former PR to the stars, turned broadcaster and journalist, Sam Dowler. Great to have you back on the show, Sam. Known as the slayer of taboos, photographer and author Laura Dodsworth. And last but not least, Daily Mail columnist Charlie Peters, who specialises in politics, security, culture and, quite clearly, fashion as well. Among the topics they will be tackling, are second homes morally wrong? If you've got a second home, are you being selfish? And has the halo slipped for Rishi Sunak after a week to forget? Plus, we've got another great British game show, Name That Fish, I'll explain later, my alternative news headlines, and in just 1 second, my big opinion. But your opinions are what matter to me, so drop me a line now and throughout the show, mark@gbnews.uk. A jam-packed 2 hours for you, and we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. It is Saturday night, so let's not forget that. Uncork something cold and Australian from the fridge, or fire up the kettle and tear open a family pack of Oreos, and let's get to work. Let's talk about our brilliant kids, shall we? There is pressure on the government to lift the ban on creating new grammar schools. The Telegraph newspaper report that grammar schools are to be protected in a new white paper as MPs call for selective school pilots in red wall seats. This came after the government announced that several areas in the north of England could bid for extra funding to set up selective state sixth form colleges for highly academic pupils. Now ministers are being urged to go further and lift what's been called an absurd ban on setting up brand new grammar schools. So what is a grammar school? Well, a grammar school is a state secondary school that selects its pupils by means of an examination taken by children at the age of 11. It's known as the 11+. These fantastic state schools have been the bedrock of Britain's academic excellence for over a century. Why? Because they are about merit. Grammar and other selective schools are based on the idea that whilst every child is special and has his or her own talents, they're not made equal. You've got your scientists, your mathematicians, you've got your sporty types, your artists, and a few work-shy ne'er-do-wells like I was, for whom there isn't much hope. Grammar schools are based on the idea that whilst every child is equal, their abilities are not. Grammar schools and other institutions that are based on selection allow brighter kids to work together, undistracted by the bozo at the back, lobbing paper airplanes like this one. These grammar school children from diverse backgrounds, all ethnicities, religions, rich and poor, are united in the common endeavour of pursuing excellence and making the best of their great talents. That's what any successful business does, of course. Any business carefully selects its staff based upon ability. Surely schools should do that as well. The glorious legacy of grammar schools is a long and notable one, with many figures who have been to these elite schools making a huge contribution to public life in this country. Let me name but a few. Sir David Attenborough, Edwina Currie, Michael Portillo, Sir Elton John, James Dyson, Kenneth Clarke and Margaret Thatcher. In fact, Margaret Thatcher once said people from my sort of background needed grammar schools to compete with children from privileged homes like Shirley Williams and Anthony Wedgwood Benn. Ironically, both left-wing rivals of hers. Grammar and other highly selective schools, which are the norm in Germany, are beacons of diversity, aspiration and social mobility. They take some of the poorest and most deprived kids and fast-track them to Oxford and Cambridge and ultimately fulfilled, productive lives. The alternative is an equality-based model in which there is no selection at all and all kids are bundled together in one classroom, irrespective of their abilities or motivation. This is a huge distraction for those brighter kids who are keen to learn, because behaviour is one of the greatest impediments to learning. And sadly, any classroom is only as good as its weakest student. How can these youngsters race ahead with challenging work when other students can't learn or won't learn? And of course, it's like spinning plates for our amazing teachers who have the impossible task of challenging and stimulating bright students whilst supporting those who are struggling. That can't be done to any satisfactory extent. It's a compromise and the kids suffer. Life is not fair, life is not equal, and you can't enforce that on humanity. Look to any communist regime to see how that works in practice. It's true for the economy and society, and it's true for education too. I believe that every child should be granted the opportunities with which to fulfil their talents, including students less academically strong. Non-selective schools shouldn't become places where less academic kids are left to fend for themselves. Far from it. Many kids that weren't academically strong have gone on to become some of the most important figures this country has ever seen. Jeremy Clarkson and my dear pal Christine Hamilton were even expelled from school, and they turned out just fine. So thriving academically is not always a guarantee of future success, and failure academically is not always a guarantee of a diminished life. But children are naturally competitive, which is why we should have more selection, not less, and more hot competition for places in the best schools, based around ability, not the family's ability to move closer to where the best schools are. It's astonishing to think that Margaret Thatcher was condemned for introducing school league tables in the 80s. Teachers' unions pushed back on this, perhaps unsurprisingly. But league tables simply involve publishing and compiling exam results so that parents could choose which school to send their kids to. That parental choice must be amplified across the board. And it's okay, in fact, for good schools to be accountable for the work they do, and for the ones that are failing to be accountable as well. After all, the taxpayer forks out almost £7,000 a year for every secondary school pupil. Recently on this show, I spoke to the founder of a private school in the north of England, which is charging parents £3,000 a year for tuition. £3,000 a year. It might be interesting if parents had that choice too. More selective state schools would give the private sector a run for their money, that's very clear. But why should only rich kids have access to elite schools? I want that for all of our brightest, academically gifted kids. But either way, schools have to be open to healthy competition, and they must be a true meritocracy. Enough already with the school sports days, where it's the taking part that matters and everyone gets a trophy. Do me a favour. Life's not like that, and neither should school be. It's only with successful competitive schools that we will have successful competitive kids and a successful competitive country. If the government is successful in bringing back grammar schools and creating many more selective schools, they will get an A star from me. For our brightest kids, the sky is the limit. I think I gave that aeroplane enough loft. I hope I did. Now, reacting to the big stories of the day is my all-star panel, Sam Dowler, Laura Dodsworth and Charlie Peters. Charlie, if I could start with you, do you think we should have more selection in our state schools?
Yeah, absolutely. And the phrase you used there about the pursuit of excellence, I think, cuts right to the heart of this issue. So many young pupils want to be the best they can in their academic careers, but unfortunately, I think are held back by a system that punishes them in favour of egalitarian planning. And it is a plan. There is no regard given to those who want to put aside the nonsense in classrooms, and a lot of schools, I think, are especially violent and disruptive, and want to be around those who believe in working hard and achieving the best they possibly can.
I've got kids who are at brilliant state comprehensive schools, but there is now streaming in those schools as well. So do you think the idea of basically putting kids of all ability into one classroom is now defunct?
Essentially, yes. I mean, it's been proven, I think, 1,000 times over, it doesn't work. The argument that's made, I think, most commonly is that by having bright students alongside those who are struggling, you bring up the average and you inspire those in the class to do better. I think that's patently false. What generally happens is that there are those who want to get ahead and then there are those who hold them back.
Laura Dodsworth, I think many people watching this show would like to see more, not fewer, grammar schools. But what's your view?
So the problem with the system back in the day wasn't the grammar schools, it was the secondary modern schools. And then astonishing what we did was get rid of the grammar schools but keep the secondary modern schools. So I am in favour of grammar schools, but the way it works at the moment in the country is the opposite of equality. I've got friends who've moved to areas where they can get their children into grammar schools, which means that those areas around these schools become incredibly expensive. So then you've got a particular social demographic in the area. And also they get their children tutored to pass the 11 plus because, you know, you can have coaching and do better. So I think the way that the grammar school system works currently is really unfair. I think we do need more selection. I went to a really bog standard secondary school, but there was a lot of selection. So we had 9 sets for every single subject. So in a way, internally, the school worked like a grammar school. And so that's another way around it as well, just have more selection within existing schools.
And perhaps a bit like the housing market, Laura, increase the supply of these very academic schools so that it isn't just a case of living in a house nearby and that you can increase the catchment.
Absolutely. So this is my point. Before, when we had a grammar school system, what was wrong with the system wasn't the grammar schools, it was the secondary modern schools. If we're going to reintroduce them, it should be everywhere, not just in Kent or in Buckinghamshire or in certain little well-to-do pockets. It should be everywhere, but especially in deprived areas.
What do you think about this, Sam? Do you think it's time for less equality in the classroom?
Well, I have to use my own example, really, because that's, you know, the only one we can really go by, is for oneself, is that I was in private school and then went to a private secondary school as well. And I remember when I was maybe 8 or 9, we had a thing called fortnightly orders, whereby you were ranked every fortnight as to how well you were doing. And then I took an entrance exam and then went to another school, it was a very posh private school. And I wasn't particularly one of those boys that wanted to learn. I wanted to have fun and stuff. I think I would have flourished more in a school whereby like education and doing well, I suppose, wasn't put upon us so much. Like I felt like it was stifled. I wanted to do art. I wanted to do other things, but I was told like, well, you know, you have to do, you know, a certain subject, and I didn't really enjoy that at all.
Well, that's right. I wonder, Sam, whether we're focused here when we talk about grammar schools and selective schools about children of high ability, but we should think about those kids that are struggling. I'm not sure they benefit from having maths geniuses in the same class.
Well, no, exactly. Like I remember, especially with the fortnightly orders, I would always come down the lower echelons and think like, oh, I'm stupid, or like, and then in secondary school again, I was like, oh, I was never going to do as well as some kids that literally, you know, it was ingrained from their family that they had to do well at school, and it wasn't really for me. Like I wanted, like I'm a big believer in these garden schools and schools whereby, you know, you're encouraged to do the things that you would like to do that would like mentally make you better as a child and as a human being.
Well, listen, you are now top of the class, Sam Dowler, and a fabulous advert for the education you had. I wouldn't change a thing. Neither would, of course, I change you, Laura, or yourself, Charlie. Charlie, can we talk about politics? How much is political philosophy a part of our education policy in this country? And should that be the case?
I think central to it. I mean, and not just the political philosophy, but the communications issue around predominantly privately educated ministers talking about how the state educated should go through their schooling. I think that is a core part of it. But on the kind of philosophical question, sure, I think this is an issue of egalitarianism creeping into those who don't generally believe in equality for all when it comes to outcomes. Sure, they might believe in equality of access of education, but there is a bizarre kind of mismatch of thinking when it comes to how they believe human flourishing can be achieved. So I believe most people in the Tory cabinet probably don't think that everyone has the same potential to achieve everything in life, right? They probably believe in differences in ability. But for some reason, when it falls into education, they seem to think that at the age of 11, you'll have the exact same opportunities. It's just not true.
Laura, let's stay on politics for a moment. The idea of a comprehensive school with no streaming, no entrance test, that's a very socialist idea. The left got it right, didn't they? Pushing for the creation of a national health service, welfare and workers' rights. Did the left get it wrong on education?
Well, completely. Look at the state of education now. I'm going to have a really negative view right now of state education. Sorry for all the teachers listening, but I've got two GCSE teenagers who've just done 2 years of lockdowns. And, you know, the kids at private school probably had a better support and resource than mine at comprehensive school. So everything I've got to say about school is coloured by recent experience. The thing is, I think of one of my sons, and when he got to school, they did give them tests in a big hall to determine which set they would go in, and he was really thrown. He'd never done anything like that, and he didn't perform as well as he should, and that affected the sets he was put into. And this goes back to the point I was making before. You know, some children are tutored and groomed to do well in tests, which rigs the whole system. So, yeah, there's a lot that's going wrong with the current comprehensive system. I think if we were to reintroduce grammar schools, it would have to be very widely, or particularly in deprived areas. But you have to bear in mind that not all children going into that setting, into that exam setting, have got the same... They haven't got the same background, benefits and advantages. They're not all geared up for it in the same way.
I think you'll agree we are travelling business class with my panel tonight. So excited about the conversation we're going to have with Sam Dowler, Laura Dodsworth and Charlie Peters. Some brilliant topics. Get your opinions coming in now. Mark at gbnews.uk. Do you think we should build more grammar schools? Later in the show, my panel will be tackling some major questions, including is having a second home selfish? We'll be talking about that very, very shortly. But up next, in the big question, should you be allowed to smack your children if they're being naughty? Or should it be illegal? What do you think about that? We'll debate that from all sides. Also, has the halo slipped for the Chancellor Rishi Sunak after a week to forget? Are his dreams of becoming Prime Minister a distant memory? Lots to get through. Don't go anywhere. But first, here's the weather.
Looking ahead to tomorrow's weather, and the UK is looking cloudy and murky in the east first thing, but clearer skies further west. Let's take a look at the details. Similar to recent days, it will be fine in the southeast of England with barely a cloud in the sky. Chilly to start, but temperatures quickly lifting. Meanwhile, in the southeast, it's going to be much cloudier than recently, especially to start. Some brighter breaks are expected to develop later. Back in the west and for Wales, here we will again have largely sunny skies with only a little fair weather cloud bubbling up. Northwest England will also have plenty of warm and sunny weather with temperatures starting quite low but jumping up quickly in the spring sunshine. Light winds will add to the warm feel. It is a different story in the northeast, however. Here there will be more cloud than we have seen those some recent days, and this will linger around some North Sea coastal parts. Parts of eastern Scotland will also have some of that nagging cloud, keeping things cooler here. Elsewhere across the country, it is looking largely warm and sunny again. Northern Ireland will also have largely clear skies. There'll be a touch of frost at first, but once the spring sunshine gets to work, those temperatures will climb. The thickest low cloud in the east should burn away this morning, and there will be more cloud here generally. And that is how the weather is shaping up during tomorrow morning.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Should we build and create more grammar schools and have selective education? Lots of emails coming in, mark@gbnews.uk. Barbara, you get the first email of the show. How are you tonight, Babs? Lovely to have you on board. Barbara says, hi, Mark. Many thanks for your opinion tonight. Couldn't agree more. When our son was young, most of his friends' parents, those who were bankers, architects, etc., attended grammar schools. They were given a chance and they took it. Marlena says, good evening, Mark. Phenomenal monologue as ever. The focus on disadvantaged pupils at schools and so-called equality means that many extremely bright pupils are forgotten. We were not able to afford grammar school for our extremely bright daughter, who would certainly benefit from being among the same ability children. We supported her as parents and she's doing great in one of the top universities. I guess what you're saying there, Marlena, is you couldn't afford to move to a location that had a grammar school, which of course makes it very expensive, which is why I think we should have loads of them in order to increase supply, and that will deal with demand. Dennis says, dear Mark, isn't it interesting how many Labour Party front rankers benefited from the grammar school system, but then pulled the ladder up behind them? Cherie Blair being a good example, married to someone, a product of a public school. Dennis, well made, excellent point. And how about this? Lots of emails, but I'll just finish with Andrew, who says, dear Mark, I agree with you entirely as regards selective education. Bring on grammar schools and technical colleges. The trouble is we have a socialist government hell-bent on levelling up. The non-academic will never be levelled up in academic studies. There you go. Andrew, thanks for your very academic and erudite email. Now, I'm very excited about tonight's show and about tomorrow night's show, because tomorrow we've got a special programme coming up, as it's an important occasion. Let me remind you, it's Mother's Day tomorrow. And what better way to celebrate than appearing here on GB News? So what I want you to do is send in some pictures of your mum for the chance to be featured on Selfie Sunday. It's a new tradition on the show. I just want to get to know you better. I want to see you, because we are a growing army, aren't we, that are changing the world here at GB News. So why don't you send in pictures of your mum and we'll feature them on tomorrow's show. mark@gbnews.uk. By all means, send them in now and the team will get them saved up for tomorrow's programme. That's right, a Selfie Sunday special tomorrow. Happy Mother's Day. It's time now for the big question, in which we tackle a major news story of the day from multiple points of view. Smacking and slapping children has been outlawed in Wales, with people told to contact social services or police if they see a parent or carer meting out physical punishment. The law change, which came into force first thing on Monday of this week, was hailed as historic by the Labour-led Welsh Government and a number of child protection champions who called for England to do just the same, to outlaw smacking. But critics, including the Welsh Conservatives, expressed concerns that it would criminalise parents trying to do their best and create a snitch culture with people shopping their neighbours and even making malicious allegations. So what do we think about this? Should smacking children be illegal? To debate this topic, I'm delighted to welcome Tam Laird, leader of the Scottish Libertarian Party, Dr. Bernard Gallagher, independent child protection researcher, and Anna May Mangan, author and, very importantly, a mother. Let's speak, first of all, to Tom Laird. Tom, do you think that smacking should be against the law?
It's my view. I mean, the party has varying views within it, so there isn't one libertarian position. My view is I'm not prepared to criminalise parents for smacking. I think there's already adequate laws against the abuse and the beating of children. I believe in peaceful parenting. I'm an advocate of peaceful parenting. I think there's a better, more excellent way of dealing with children and dealing in discipline, but I'm not prepared. Yeah, look, it's all very well making laws, but when you make a law, you have to back up that law with force and violence. Otherwise, it's not a law, it's merely a suggestion. So I'm not prepared to use force against parents and lock them up in a cage beside murderers and rapists, or fine them, or worse still, take their kids off them because they've smacked. And I think there's a real danger here of state overreach. If this was an isolated thing, fair enough, but I think over the last couple of years, we've seen some real state overreach into private institutions, into the family, and an attack on parental responsibility. So that's a concern to me, and that's a concern to libertarians. And the idea, frankly, that government cares about your children is, frankly, and in the circumstances of the last 2 years, preposterous.
But Tam, if this legislation prevents abuse against just one child, surely it's worth it.
I don't see that it can. Law never prevented anything. All the law does is allows you to punish after the event. And there's already adequate provision within the law to deal with people who beat and abuse their children. So while, again, I say I'm for peaceful parenting, I think it's the best method, but I'm not prepared to criminalise people who smack. And that certainly won't be grassing up anybody I see giving out what I would think would maybe be reasonable chastisement depending on the circumstances.
Anna May Mangan,
but that's just a personal opinion.
Yeah, fair enough, and that's what it's all about, Tam, and we're pleased that you've expressed it on the show. I'll come back to you shortly. Anna May Mangan, what's your view? Should smacking be illegal?
It certainly should be illegal. It's brutalising little children. In a couple, a husband wouldn't get away with whacking his wife, or vice versa. So why would you do it to the smallest and most vulnerable person in your family? It doesn't make any sense at all. And I'm not suggesting a van goes out and rounds everybody up who has been described as smacking their children. I think what this law does is it makes a change, like a cultural change. It's the start of a change. Often it takes a generation for this to come about. I mean, if you think about seatbelts, very few people don't put their seatbelts out. We don't send children up chimneys anymore. Yeah, we move on and we learn. And the whole point of discipline is to change a child's behaviour. So what are you teaching them by smacking them? You're only encouraging them to smack their siblings or to smack the child sat next to them in class. It's old-fashioned, it's outdated, and I think people recognise it as a form of what? It's violence. Yeah, it's violence.
Dr. Bernard Gallagher, you are an independent child protection researcher. What's your view? Does this law do more harm than good, as suggested by Tam Laird?
I don't think it will do any harm. I agree with Anna May that it is wrong to smack children. They're the only group in society that in England we're currently allowed to smack. You know, we're not allowed to smack our partners. We're not allowed to smack our colleagues. So why are we allowed to smack children? The other point I'd like to make is that basically parents aren't going to get prosecuted for smacking their parents I can understand that people are fearful of that, but that isn't going to happen in the vast majority of cases. What it's important to bear in mind here about this legislation in Wales, and Scotland has it already, and I believe 62 other countries have it, it's symbolic. It's trying to discourage violence in the home. Now, I'm not saying, I make it crystal clear, I think any smacking of any child is wrong, but, that's not as serious as some of the abuse cases I've spent my career studying, and some of us will remember the case of Arthur Lavinia Hughes and Star Hobson's 2 young children that were murdered by their parents, and the parents were convicted fairly recently. Now, what I'm trying to say is that this law has a symbolic value to discourage violence in the home in general, and that will actually save some serious abuse cases, because it's sending out a general message that violence is wrong. And I think all of us would want to agree with that message, that violence is wrong in whatever form. Let's try and do as much as we can to discourage it. Let's have a change of attitude, because for too long, too many societies have been wedded, almost obsessed with the idea that they should have this right to smack children. They don't need that. There's other... Smacking isn't effective anyway, and there's far more effective ways of caring for your children.
However, Anna May Mangan, there's a difference, isn't there, between somebody that cruelly abuses their child, for which, as Tam Laird points out, there are laws in place, and a normal parent that just taps their child symbolically on the wrist because they tried to run across the road. In Wales now, you could get your kids taken off you for doing that.
Has lost control, and it's about their loss of control, not what.
What, this?
Done.
Is that a loss of control?
An idea about what justifies it.
It's a signal.
My favourite remark is, it was only a little tap. Well, if it was only a little tap, why are you doing it? Why don't you reason with them? Why don't you talk to them? Why don't you get down to their level? Why don't you give them an evil stare? I mean, that's what my mother used to do to me, and it worked. And other things parents who slap say, it didn't do me any harm. But of course it did, because they're doing it to their child. So it's perpetuating the cycle. And I'm delighted that this law's come in, because it's going to modify people's behaviour, not instantly, but over a period of time.
Although, Anna May Mangan, I'm wondering where you draw the line, because if a child, let's say, is behaving badly in a restaurant, if you scoop them out of their seats and manhandle them outside to have a conversation with them about their behaviour, or let's take that example of a child that is about to step into the road, you want to send them a message that what they've just done could be fatal. And if you therefore physically communicate that message, that will serve them well in life.
Yeah, so you give them a big smack for that. Where does that get you? It doesn't teach them anything. It teaches them to hit their little brother or sister. It's interesting, actually, because I've been in restaurants where a lot of adults behave really, really badly, and they don't slap each other. They get drunk, they misbehave, and everyone tolerates that. So why can't you tolerate a little child behaving badly for a while? There's ways to teach and train them, not smacking them. Imagine a giant walked into the studio now and he was 2 or 3 times your height and gave you what he described as a little slap. He'd probably knock you out. And you'd be terrified. I mean, that is what it must feel like to a child when an adult bears down on them.
It would be great for our ratings, though. I mean, I'd pay to see that. Let's come back to you, Tam Laird, about this, because I think what's also at play here is the issue of parental autonomy, which I would have thought, as the leader of the Scottish Libertarian Party, is a concern of yours.
Well, of course it is. But let me be absolutely clear. I'm not advocating smacking your kids. I believe in peaceful parenting. I think it's a good idea. There are many good arguments for peaceful parenting. I don't think you wouldn't do it to an adult is a strong argument. You wouldn't pick up an adult and strap them into the back seat of your car and force them to go down to the supermarket with you and drag them round the shops. Or there's probably a lot of blokes shouting at the screen at this point, tell that to my missus. But no, I'm not for smacking children. But I'm just not prepared to criminalise parents. So there's some horrific stories coming out of Norway at the moment of people who are having their children taken away from them for the slightest thing, not even smacking, sometimes just for other kinds of punishment that don't involve physical punishment. And that is my concern, and it's part of a greater movement to undermine parental authority. That's my view. But let's face it, if there's something good comes out of this, if the government sticks to its own principles and doesn't attack children with needles full of an experimental vaccine, then maybe that's a good thing.
Briefly, Tam Laird, we've seen in Scotland advice to primary schools that children as young as 5 can choose their own name or their own gender without parental consent.
Yeah, well, my solution to that one is get your kids out of state schools. There is absolutely no legal requirement at this moment in time to send your children to state school. That may change. I know Scotland would love to go down the road in Sweden and actually outlaw homeschooling, but I think the solution there is get your kids out of state school.
The reason, Dr. Bernard Gallagher, why I mentioned that example of children being able to choose their gender or which toilets they use out with parental influence is that this is a state land grab of parental autonomy, isn't it? And surely that's a dangerous precedent to set. It's up to parents to raise their kids, not the government.
No, I mean, the state isn't trying to interfere needlessly or inappropriately in family life. What it's trying to do, in the case of Wales, is deter people from smacking their children. And as we've said already on this programme, children aren't afforded the rights that are afforded to everybody else. You cited a moment ago, what's wrong with a little tap on the hand? Would you tap your partner on the hand? Would you tap your partner on the face? Would you, sort of quite violently remonstrate with one of your colleagues? You wouldn't do. So why do you do it to a child? And it's doubly important not to do it to a child because it's not effective, and there are other much more appropriate ways of actually bringing up your children. All the government in Wales is trying to do is encouraging more appropriate parenting. Now, the state is involved in all aspects of our lives. It runs the National Health Service.
Exactly.
That's a very good thing. So I think this thing about, again, this obsession with overstating involvement is a sort of myth, basically. All the government of Wales is trying to do is to ensure that encourage children to be brought up in a more appropriate way without sort of inflicting violence upon them.
Briefly, I want to come back, if I may, to Anna May Mangan in a moment, but you're shaking your head there, Tam Laird.
Yeah, I was. I mean, I think it's just a bit disingenuous to say that the state doesn't want to get involved in family life and tell people that there is far too much state overreach. And do I think the state should be running the health service? Absolutely not. And the state makes a horrible parent. Now, you're talking about encouragement and encouraging children. Why don't you encourage parents, instead of threatening with violence that big men with sticks will come and throw you in the jail if you smack your kids? Why not just encourage parents to look after their children and not to hit them and to be peaceful parents? Encourage, don't punish. Take your own advice here.
OK, and finally, Anna May Mangan, what if this is weaponised by a bad actor, somebody that wants to get revenge on a neighbour or a friend or a family member by reporting abuse that isn't happening?
Well, I mean, I think that's a risk any responsible parent would take. But I find it interesting, this talking about the state and owning children. So you have your children, people think they own them, therefore they can smack them. But if someone else smacked their child, for example, a teacher, they'd lose their cool, I'm guessing most of them. You wouldn't smack a friend's child. So because it's your child, it doesn't mean that you have a license to behave badly. So, I mean, yeah, so the state argument interfering doesn't follow through for me.
My deep thanks to all three of you for what has been a balanced and fascinating conversation. Tam Laird is the leader of the Scottish Libertarian Party. Dr. Bernard Gallagher is an independent child protection researcher. And Anna May Mangan. By the way, Anna May, tell me about your books. Can you plug your book, please?
Oh, well, I had a best-selling London Irish memoir about my family. There were 13 children in my parents' on both sides, and sometimes they smacked, but 2 generations away, we've all changed. But yeah, it's a funny, makes you laugh, makes you cry.
What's it called?
Me and Mine.
Me and Mine by Anna May Mangan. You'll have to come into the studio and tell us all about it. Thanks so much to all three of you. A really interesting conversation. Let's bring my panel in if we can. I'm delighted to say that Charlie Peters is with us, as well as Laura Dodsworth and Sam Dowler. Closing comments on this one. What's your view, Laura? Should we criminalise the smacking of children?
No, I think it goes too far. I mean, already there are laws that protect children from violence. Going back to 2004, you couldn't smack in a way that would leave more than temporary redness on skin. So, you know, the kind of excesses of domestic abuse and violence, they're already protected against. I think it's the state interfering overly between parent and child. I thought you raised a really good point in your questions there. I think there's a real risk of a Stasi-like culture. You know, you can imagine that exes or disgruntled family members or friends could get involved and use what might be an incredibly mild incident of a controlled tap on the hand to cause social services to intrude in a private family matter. I think it's going too far, and you know, we should just apply common sense. The law is already very well set up to protect children.
Sam, we've seen stuff being taught at schools that some parents don't like. Do you think that parents are actually losing their ability to raise their own kids?
No, I don't think that. I think at the end of the day, times have changed. I mean, I was smacked as a kid, but then my mother was hit with a wooden spoon when she was a kid. We use our words nowadays. You threaten toys being taken away or screen time being reduced. That is the way to do things these days. If you hit a child, what are they going to do? Then go to school and then think that it's okay to hit one of their classmates because they think they're being naughty. This isn't how things work these days, so the sooner it's gotten rid of, the better. The NSPCC did a survey recently in England, and 62% of people thought that the law should be changed to be more similar to Wales at the moment. So, and things are only going to move in that direction. It's not going to move in the other way.
Sam, I've got no doubt that your mother was a very loving and attentive parent, but did it impact you at all when you were slapped?
Well, of course, I remember it now. I remember, Laura just said about handprints, etc. I remember, you haven't been, if I've left a handprint, then you've been naughty enough, sort of thing. I mean, of course, and I remember that to this day, and I'm certainly a lot older, and my sister certainly would never strike her children. So that's how things are now. So people need to get with the programme, and a slap on the wrist, etc. It leads to something else. As one of your guests said earlier, it is a loss of control. Ooh, I can't deal with it. You know, I mean, how do you gauge whether something's going to leave a mark? It's your anger that's the problem.
Charlie Peters, criminalising something we shouldn't be doing anyway. What's the problem?
Well, the problem, I think, is the curtain-twitching, Stasi-like mentality that Laura hinted at there. I mean, have we learnt nothing from the 2 years of the pandemic? This country is packed to the brim with snitches who can't wait to tell on their neighbours, their best friends, their family members, any excuse for someone to parade a social pariah down the street and shame someone for their misgivings. It would be like that all over again, except instead of taking extra toilet roll or going for 2 walks in a day, it would be policing your child's behaviour in a way that you feel is justifiable. I mean,
should smacking be criminalised? What do you think? Mark at gbnews.uk. Also, we've got Mark Meets tonight at 10 o'clock. SAS hero, author and TV personality Phil Campion, who's live in the studio, and oh boy, has he got a story to tell. And we'll have a look at some of the best viral videos out there. I'm so excited about a banana-eating robot. Look at this. Seriously, folks, get back to the drawing board. Elon Musk, eat your heart out. We'll discuss that very, very shortly. Plus my alternative news headlines and your emails. But in the news agenda next with my panel, Rishi Sunak has had a tough week. Has the halo slipped for the Chancellor? Are his dreams of becoming Prime Minister now in tatters? We'll discuss that very shortly. See you after this.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows. Every day, we ask the questions
That you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
So many emails are coming in. Let's have a look at what you've got to say at mark@gbnews.uk. Child smacking. Wayne says, Mark, is mental torture better for a child? Go to your room for hours, no toys for 2 hours, no pocket money, and so on. Or a tap on the wrist with an explanation. Child smacking. How about this from Norma? Mark, being of an age who lived when smacking children was universal in homes and schools, I refuse to accept that the smacks I received damaged me. Children have a great sense of fair play. I always deserved my smacks as a child, and I've never smacked anybody as a child or as an adult. Interesting stuff. Norma, thank you so much for that. Let's crack on. Lots to get through. Phil Campion, SAS hero, tells us his story live in the studio at 10. But the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, has had a week to forget. From his spring statement revealing the government is going to go ahead with their 1.25% national insurance hike, to his mumbling bluster trying to define a woman with Julia Hartley-Brewer on Talk Radio. It was quite embarrassing. It's also been revealed that his beloved billionaire wife, Akshata Murthy, has received almost £12 million in dividends from a Russian company despite the Ukraine-Russian war. So it begs the question, has Rishi Sunak lost his halo? Are his chances of becoming Prime Minister at the next election gone? What do we think? Panel, Sam, Rishi, has the halo slipped?
I think with Rishi, I mean, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, everyone was like, oh, we love him, of course. Of course we loved him, because he's like the man in the pub that says, free beers on me for everyone. And then the next day comes and it's like, actually, can I get that £5, please?
Yes, that's exactly it.
So it's, you know, of course, everybody wants to be the man with, you know, the big bucks. But unfortunately, he's had to come back to reality. And also, unfortunately, with, you know, with his family and etc. and, like, you know, various, you know, blunders in the media, this is, you know, squeaky bum time for Rishi Sunak.
Well, look, I tell you what, let's take a listen to Rishi Sunak being interviewed this week.
Rishi Sunak, what is a woman?
Well, I thought the Prime Minister answered this brilliantly in Prime Minister's Question Times, in Prime Minister's Questions this week, and I fully agree with him.
And so what is your definition of a woman?
As I said, I would exactly agree with what the Prime Minister said at Prime Minister's Question Time. I thought he answered the question very well.
An adult human female?
That's the Chancellor speaking to Julia Hartley-Brewer on Talk Radio this week. I mean, we thought this guy had a way with words, Laura, but he was dumbstruck at that point, wasn't he?
Goodness, what a week for him. I'm just popping with frustration listening to that. But I'm just going to go back to the halo slipping before. I'm sorry, for me, it slipped right at the beginning of the pandemic. I was terrified by the fact that we were going to quantitative ease our way through lockdowns and furlough. And actually, this has been like waiting for a slow motion lorry crash. The lorries are only just about to hit each other. And then we're going to have all the other vehicles and the ricochet. So this budget, inflation, the cost of living crisis, all this was predictable at the beginning of the pandemic. So for me, his halo slipped long ago.
But do you not
I don't want free beers in the pub at the beginning. I don't. But no, right back. Yeah. Sorry, now I've got that in. Now for the next knife. That was embarrassing. I am so fed up with politicians not being able to say what a woman is. Look, a toddler can answer the question, and yet politicians can't. Now, to give him his dues, the Tory politicians are doing a little bit better than the Labour politicians, but it's a really poor show. Now, I spoilt my last ballot in the general election. This isn't popular, you know. I know that people think this is a waste of your vote, but I can't vote for any party that can't say what a woman is and won't commit to not putting, say, transgender male rapists into women's prisons, etc. The reason this matters, the reason it matters to define a woman is you cannot protect women's rights unless you know who a woman is.
And it's surprising that a Conservative Chancellor has struggled with this. The Prime Minister in the Commons this week said that biological sex trumps everything else. So was that enough for you? It was
very good start. Look, to be fair, although the Conservatives are the ones who proposed the Gender Recognition Act reform, they have been the most sensible. So, yes, the Prime Minister didn't do a bad job, but can Rishi not find his own words? Like I said, you could ask a 2-year-old and they can tell you what a woman is.
Charlie, I'm going to come to you, but Sam, you're sweating in that in that cardigan of yours.
In my Aaron. I completely agree with Keir Starmer. A trans woman is a woman and trans rights are not in conflict with women's rights in the slightest. We have to get away from this toxic argument. I mean, Julia Hartley-Brewer was clearly trying to goad him into saying something that would trip him up, which is exactly why he...
What is a woman?
Which is exactly...
It's not exactly a curveball question, is it?
It's like I was on a show the other day talking about like a man with a cervix, which is a trans man, obviously. So I mean, these are scenarios that people don't know about, and they want to get all het up and be like, oh, you know, like Laura just said, you know, in prisons, etc. But like this is a topic that needs to be treated very, very carefully. And what people are doing at the moment, such as the presenter the other day, was trying to trip people up and get headlines.
So you were happy that actually Rishi Sunak was censorious about that actually judicious, I should say.
Happy with that.
You're happy with that. He treads a fine line. What do you think, Charlie? First of all, has the halo slipped? This guy was odds on to become our next Prime Minister a month ago, and then Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the little money man Rishi Sunak uses very delicate tailoring to mask the fact that he's, 5'6", 5'7", and is quite a diminutive figure. No one wants to vote for a politician who looks like a dwarf. And then,
as Mrs. Dolan will tell you, size is not everything.
Well, I think
it's what you do with that height.
I think he very carefully creates his image to appear much more strong and authoritative than he clearly is. He's quite a diminutive figure, and I think that affects his standing with the public in the same way that certain politicians like Ed Miliband failing to eat a bacon sandwich correctly ruin their chances.
And what about this issue of his wealth? The guy is a self-made millionaire. He made his money in the city, and his wife is the heir to $1 billion fortune. Is that an insuperable problem for his ambitions?
I wish that Rishi Sunak recognised that his self-made millions could be spread around the country more keenly, and that there would be an opportunity instead of this kind of Tory tinkering that he delves into with his economic policy. Instead, he adopted a kind of pro-growth agenda and actually created other opportunities for other people to enjoy the wealth that he has made himself.
So do you think he's still got a look in as becoming our next Prime Minister when Boris eventually goes?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, anyone in one of the great offices of state is always going to be in the running because they get more television time, the face to the public. So, of course, they get a better opportunity.
Well, what do you think, folks? Mark at GBnews.uk. A massive hour to come. Mark meets Phil Campion, SAS hero, my alternative headlines, another game show, and more from this incredible panel. So do stay in touch. My email is mark@gbnews.uk. Don't go anywhere. See you in 2.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows. Every day, we ask the questions
That you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Sebastian, give me a wide shot, because look, in the studio is our wonderful guest. He is, of course, Phil Campion, SAS hero. He's live in the studio. If you've got questions for Phil, drop me a line right now, mark@gbnews.uk. I'll be talking to Phil about his incredible life, his amazing career, and also what he thinks is going to happen in Russia and Ukraine. Has Putin lost his battle to take over Ukraine? We'll discuss that very, very shortly. Plus, my alternative news headlines, more from my amazing panel. Is having a second home selfish? Is it morally wrong? We'll discuss that. Plus, another great British game show and the queen of US showbiz and royal reporting, Kinsey Schofield, live from the Hollywood Hills. We don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. I'm delighted to say we've got the headlines now. Let's go to Miranda Shunker.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening. The top stories from the GB newsroom. US President Joe Biden says that Vladimir Putin cannot remain in power. The remarks were made during a speech in Warsaw today, but the White House responded saying his comments didn't represent a shift in Washington's policy, insisting he wasn't calling for regime change. Dismissing the comment, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said the president of Russia is a choice for the Russian people.
Where the appetites and ambitions of a few forever seek to dominate the lives and liberty of many. My message to the people of Ukraine is a message I delivered today to Ukraine's foreign minister and defense minister, who I believe are here tonight. We stand with you, period.
Well, if Russia targets Ukraine's nuclear plants, the world is at risk. That's according to the mayor of Kiev, Vitaly Klitschko, and his brother Vladimir. The Klitschko brothers told GB News they're grateful to Britain and the US for support, but they need more.
We need much more weapons. We need much more help. We have to stop the Russians. The whole world surprised how tough Ukrainian army, defend our homeland.
Well, in other news, calls are growing for the boss of P&O Ferries to quit as protests took place today at UK ports over the sacking of hundreds of staff.
What do we want? When do we want it? Now!
Meanwhile, a P&O ferry remains in dock in Northern Ireland for being unfit to sail over issues with vessel documents and crew training. The operator replaced 800 seafarers with agency staff last week. Prince William has signalled British support for Caribbean islands seeking to become republics during the royal tour. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge today laid flowers at a memorial to remember the victims of Hurricane Dorian in the Bahamas in 2019. The Duke suggested a future decision by the country, Jamaica and Belize, to break away from the monarchy will be accepted by the UK. And the music world has been paying tribute to the drummer of the Foo Fighters, Taylor Hawkins, who's died at the age of 50.
Let's finish the track. Can we just wait, dude?
Play the drums.
The world-famous rock band have recently made a horror movie called Studio 666. Taylor Hawkins was found dead in his hotel room in Colombia, where the band are on tour. Lead singer Dave Grohl says they are devastated by the untimely loss. Well, on TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now it's back to Mark.
My thanks to Miranda Shunker, who returns in an hour's time. With me live in the studio for Mark Meets in 2 minutes' time is SAS hero Phil Campion, big Phil Campion, and what a story he's got to tell. And he'll give his views on the Ukrainian conflict as well. Is Vladimir Putin in trouble? Is a peace deal in the offing? We'll get to all of that very shortly. It's time now for my alternative news headlines, and the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, has got himself in hot water after a week to forget. Yes, indeed, he stumbled in a radio interview, as we've just mentioned, with Talk Radio's Julia Hartley-Brewer. He couldn't define what a woman is. Also this week, his multi-millionaire wife has seen her family's wealth linked to Russian money, and he committed a PR own goal, trying to look like a man of the people, filling up someone else's car. And that's before you get to his mini budget on Wednesday, which revealed that Britain is now so broke it makes Katie Price look financially solvent by comparison. Like Katie, we're going bust. It seems that Sunak's hopes of becoming Prime Minister are diminishing by the day. So if so, what other career options might lie ahead for this Instagram-loving Chancellor? We thought perhaps he could do this. There you go, a bit of fast food action. Pizza delivery boy, why not? Or how about this option? There you go, get rid of bad news on a bad day, become a binman. Or how about this? Oh, that'll do it. The guy's a wonder in the kitchen. And last but not least, there you go. Lifesaver. I'm glad that my name is covering his vital statistics. Comedian Jack Whitehall has made headlines. Apparently, he's been dropped by former close pal Prince Harry for making a joke about him at the Royal Variety performance. Whitehall quipped that Harry had ginger nuts. Now, I've got to say I was surprised at Prince Harry. I had no idea he was so thin-skinned and insecure. Well, apparently the young royal saw red after hearing the joke. Well, I say red, more strawberry blonde. Now, yesterday we brought you the amazing news that the Mail newspaper's talented columnist Liz Jones, a good friend of mine, had surgery to make her eyebrows bigger. The Mail reported the story this week at great length. It was a fascinating read. Well, here on Mark Dolan tonight, my team have been hard at work securing exclusive before and after photos of the eyebrow procedure. So here's the before photograph. Fine-looking lady, lovely smile, a great journalist, but those eyebrows are a bit thin. Here's the after photo. Much better. Proper gravitas. Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton is in the news. The former First Lady has caught a mild form of COVID and will be self-isolating. Of course, we wish her a speedy recovery. But folks, I'll be honest, I'm worried. It's hard to know how former President Bill Clinton will entertain himself with the wife locked up indoors for 2 weeks. He'll find a way. Back to Liz Jones and those eyebrows. Here's the before. A great writer, a woman of substance, but those eyebrows could do with more volume, couldn't they? Here's the after. That's better. Fixed it for you. She's no muppet. A trans woman on Twitter has made quite a splash with a tweet saying that she has period pains. That's right, someone born a male, but who has period pains from menstruation. Here is the tweet. Take a look. We're nothing if not open-minded on this show. Okay, I'm a trans woman who's experiencing her first period cramps, and what the hell? I have literally never felt pain like this. Why do we let people live like this? Brilliant. I've got to say, I completely believe that person. I believe that tweet, because even though I'm a bloke, I experience female symptoms all the time. I'm moody once a month, I can't park, and I spend hours every day doing my hair. Not that it's working. One last look at the brilliant journalist Liz Jones. We worked together once, I'm a fan. Here's the before photo. She just needs more coverage on that brow, doesn't she? And here is the after. That'll do it. Now you're talking. And those are your alternative news headlines. Oh! That was my best Chewbacca. Now, it's time for Mark Meets. Oh! No, it's not coming, which is my catchphrase. It's time now for Mark Meets, in which I speak to the biggest names in the world of politics, sport, showbiz, and beyond. Tonight, Phil Campion, known to his friends as Big Phil, SAS hero, author, and TV star. Following a very challenging start in life, given up for adoption as a young child, Phil went through a system of abuse and indifference within the foster and care system, but he refused to be defined by it. Leaving school at the age of 16 with virtually no qualifications, it was the Royal Hampshire Regiment who rescued him and set him on the path to where he is today. In 1997, he was one of a handful of soldiers in the British Army to pass both the Royal Marines Commando course and the Parachute Regiment's infamous P Company to earn his right to wear the famous red beret. But that wasn't enough for this ambitious young man who passed selection and joined 22 SAS, the Special Air Service, the UK's top-tier Special Forces unit, serving with D Squadron. His biography, Born Fearless, became an instant bestseller and led to a Sky TV series called Big Phil's War. More books followed, including best-selling fiction in the form of charismatic Steve Range and the Blackstone 6 team. It's quite a life. It's quite a career, and I'm delighted to say that Big Phil Campion joins me now. Hi, Phil.
Thanks for having me.
I would shake your hand, but I don't want it crushed.
I won't crush it, mate. I'll be all right.
What a story. Would you change a thing?
No, but I would learn from quite a lot, do you know what I mean? So I think that's the important thing, do you know what I mean? We all do stuff that we're probably not proud of sometimes, and probably we could have done a little bit better at the time. But so long as you learn from that, for me, it's okay, do you know what I mean? So that's one of my big things, is that I try and, you know, fool me once, fool me twice, you know, proper fool me.
Well, I've got to say that Mrs. Dolan, who's no military expert, but we've got a sort of mantra in the house, which is every mistake once.
Yeah, that's it. Every mistake once. You know, look, I've made some massive howlers in my time. All right, from school, you know, I got expelled from 2 schools. I got expelled from. You know, I messed up an opportunity to go to a public school. You know, where I was there having my education paid for me. I messed all that up. But actually, have I messed it all up? It's my end game is to help other people by my experiences. Do you know what I mean? So look, every cloud in my life has got a silver lining. Do you know what I mean? And I believe there's always a positive to be had from a negative.
How did a place at private school come about?
I did, you know, those little tick tests with little legs. Remember, you had to tick them down. It's like an IQ thing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I did really well in it. But classroom-wise, I had the attention span of a goldfish, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not a very clever one. So I seriously, I'd sit there out in class, go, twiddle be thumbs, break time. I just couldn't concentrate, do you know what I mean? But
So intellectually you were there, but emotionally you weren't.
No, not even emotionally. I just had no interest in it.
Yeah.
The stuff they were teaching me, I didn't want to learn.
Yeah.
I really had no interest in it whatsoever. But it's not the end of the world, do you know what I mean? And even though I left school with a cycle proficiency, and that was about it, do you know what I mean? I've managed to become a Times best-selling author. I've done this, I've done that, I've done the other, do you know what I mean? My big thing is never give up, do you know what I mean? And if you want something bad enough, just go for it, do you know what I mean? Don't aim down there, because you'll hit down there somewhere, do you know what I mean? Aim up there, and then you'll probably get around here somewhere. But it's better than down there, isn't it, do you know what I mean?
Is it ever too late?
No, never too late. I don't think. You know, I've seen all sorts of people change their lives around at different periods in their life. It took me a long time to really sort myself out. Do you know what I mean? I've only really come out of the woods in the last few years. I've had my troubles right up till recent. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I've been a roller coaster. Do you know what I mean? But I like to think I've plateaued a little bit now.
What I love about you is that you won't be defined by either the positives or the negatives in your life. It's just one big melting pot for you. But let's talk about a childhood that you had that was not easy. You were not born with a silver spoon in your mouth. Your mum gave you up for adoption. Do we know the circumstances around that?
Something around, because I did meet my adopted family later on in my life, so I did get the sort of like backstory. Again, I said to them, look, let's not go digging all that up. Let's move with what we've got now. So I didn't get the full story. They were in tough times. It was taboo then to have 2 or 3 kids and all that sort of stuff as a single mother. My old man done the off, he'd done the runner, do you know what I mean? The nan had the older brother, which obviously I didn't meet till later on in my life. It was a right old mess. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So
she wasn't able to give you the life that she'd have wanted to give you?
No, I don't think she could have given me any life, to be honest, in her opinion. So that's it, I did the off. Unfortunately, the family that I went to were abusive. He broke my nose several times. When she finally forced him out the door, she turned on me. Do you know what I mean? I ended up in a series of children's homes where I, was subject to not just physical abuse but sexual abuse as well. So no, it wasn't but and I always say this, and I'll say this to people when I do my after dinners, and I say, look, the first lesson I learnt really was a harsh one off my old man, and it was that if you keep still while you're getting a beating, he'll soon lose interest, and it won't go off as long as it does if you struggle. All right? Now that's a harsh lesson to learn, isn't it? You know what I mean?
Especially from a fighter like you, this is a counterintuitive advice, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But I learned that I could almost control the temperament of his anger by cutting it, nipping it in the bud, and calling it a day. Do you know what I mean? And he'd lose interest, and it'll be over. And in my own mind, I've had a win then. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And that's a positive from a negative. It's a honking negative. It's not a good negative, but it's a positive.
So what you would sort of basically accept the attack. You would just take the spray.
Yeah, you're not going to stop it. You're not going to stop it. But what you could do is almost control it by acting as if you fought against it, it came worse and harder and longer. Yeah. If you went down, took it, curled in, fetal position, that sort of stuff, gave up, took the breath. You know what I mean? Bang.
What age were you when you entered this family setting? First, how old were you, do you think, when you went to this first family?
About 6 months, because literally I left. I should have gone
early. You were a baby. You went as a baby.
I was a baby.
And so, growing up then as a little boy, that's when the attacks began.
Yeah. I vividly remember him. To me, he used to tower above me. Yeah. And I remember he used to sit on top of me. He used to make nosebleed, and he used to get older. Oh, stop it bleeding! And I was, you know what I mean? All right, we'll go with this. You know what I mean? Honestly.
And you would have been what, 5 or 6 or 7 when?
Yeah, around that age, I suppose.
When the violence began.
Yeah. When it was at the height of it, really.
And are you angry towards?
No, do you know what? I sat with him 2 or 3 weeks before he died. An old man. I could have shoved a pillow in his face. I could have got all vindictive about it. I could have let him know all about it and popped him off. No. You know, I let him have his dignity. I let him slip this world. I don't have no recourse to it. What's the point? Do you know what I mean? Look, I always say now, I haven't got enough time on this planet for the people I love, let alone the ones I don't. All right, and that's true, okay? That's true. I don't like going back into the past. I don't like digging stuff up. I don't like dragging it all with me, because it's luggage, it's behind.
And that's exactly what I also don't want to do here today, because we're here to celebrate your incredible career. But obviously our audience will be very concerned about the fact that you left this awful, abusive family setting. They were supposed to take care of you. They did the opposite. And then you went into the care system, which was as bad, if not worse.
It was, but look, as well, I was a little git, a little B-word, all right? All right, I was honking. I was poorly behaved, all right? And I'm not saying I deserved what I got, but I certainly antagonised it. Do you know, and some of the beatings I got when I was in the secure units and all that sort of stuff were basically them defending themselves from me. Do you know what I mean? Because I would lose it then. I was getting a little bit bigger. I realised I could get hold of people and start taking them down and that sort of stuff. And so, yeah, there's a little bit of, you've got to be...
And what about, on the sexual abuse side, did you ever have recriminations? Did you ever beat the crap out of any of those perpetrators?
No.
You must have been tempted to.
Purely, yeah, I was very tempted. But it was just... It was such a shock to me when that happened. It was such a shock. And it was something I couldn't even talk about to anybody. Because it had been put in my head, if you do talk about this, they're not going to believe you and you're going to make your situation a lot worse than what it is now. And it wasn't rosy at that time, do you know what I mean? So you're thinking, well, I'll tell you what I'll do, I'll just roll with this, whatever I've got to do to get out of it, do you know what I mean? Try and get away. And like I say, I left the kids home actually when I was 15 to try and get away with it, and he followed me in. That was one of the reasons I went to the army in the end, because once I went through the gates of the camp...
You were safe?
Completely gone. Do you know what I mean?
And did you ever need therapy or counselling to address some of those things that happened to you when you were...
Never had it. Probably nowadays, I'm a massive advocate for mental health, and probably, I've done things the hard way. I've done things by talking to myself in the mirror. Do you know what I mean? I always say to people, people say you're mad if you talk to yourself. I say you're mad if you don't. All right? And I will look in the mirror and tell myself, Phil, sort yourself out, son. Do you know what I mean? So I do have a little bit of that. I do realise that there probably has been a little bit of mental health in my life which has been overlooked. I like to think that I've pulled through and I'm at the other side of that. Finally, at the age of 53, I'm ploughing ahead, and I'm living. I'm fulfilling one of my promises, which I would help other children, to live from my experiences. And obviously, I'm the champion of the cadet force, which I'm extremely proud of. And that's one of the things that I really want to see. Young people have it tough nowadays. Tell
me about what is the cadet force and what does
the Army Cadet Force.
It do?
It's a uniform service. It's not about getting kids in the army. It's about giving them qualifications that perhaps they don't get at school. It's about giving them things like Duke of Edinburgh's award,
brilliant,
a little bit of first aid, little bit of discipline. Okay, in a way that's formatted so that they understand it nowadays. Because
correct uniform, walk in a straight line,
exactly,
make your bed,
turn up on time with the right kit, doing the right thing. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. That sort of stuff, okay, which perhaps they don't get so much at school. And don't forget, you're a volunteer to be there, all right? You don't have to come to parade. So if you're showing up, you're making the right moves, aren't you? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And all we want to do is turn young people into decent young adults.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I don't care if they join the army or not. That's not my aim, is to get people into the army. I really, there's lots of people come through our doors that do all sorts of great stuff in their lives. Do you know what I mean? Few will go in the army. That's the nature of the beast, okay?
So if parents are watching who have got kids that might benefit from being in the cadet force, how do they enrol? Does it cost money?
Just go down to your local... It doesn't cost a lot of money. I'm not sure exactly what it costs, but just go down to your local cadet office. They're easy enough to find. You can Google it. They've got all sorts of social media going on. Just pitch up.
It would be a lot cheaper than summer camps or skiing holidays.
Oh yeah. I mean, you'd be lucky to pay more than a bullseye for a summer camp, and that's fed, watered, looked after activities and all that caper. Do you know what I mean? So it's good stuff. It really is. It really is a seriously decent organisation that get to do a lot of really cool stuff and get qualified while they're doing it.
Yeah. So what about your entrance into the military? You got in. You were physically safe at that point.
Yep.
What else did it do for you?
It gave me a belonging. It gave me almost a family. Do you know what I mean? And I realised, I'm part of something now. I've never really been part of anything.
Yeah.
I've been banged from pillar to post. I've done this. I've done that. I've done the other. I was part of something now. Do you know what I mean? And it was only
maybe they wanted you. You were somewhere that you were wanted.
Absolutely. Your behaviour dictated how you were treated. Do you know what I mean? You could perform, you could excel, or you could drop out. Those are your choices in life, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? So I took the bull by the horns. I always wanted a soldier. I loved it, and the more I got into it, and I remember one of my first sergeant majors said, Phil, you've got a job that you like, you're never going to work. And I thought, I like this job, it's not work, is it? Do you know what I mean? I love it, absolutely love it. So I had a tremendous time.
And what about this ambition? Why were you never satisfied with your rank? You just kept reaching for...
it wasn't rank, I didn't want rank. I never wanted responsibility. Right. I just wanted to be the tip of the sword. I wanted to kick the door.
I wanted to be
the man
in the top
I wanted to be the best at what I did, do you know what I mean? It's just... why does a Premiership footballer want to be a Premiership footballer? He wants to play at that elite level. He wants to test himself as much as he can. I was very fortunate to be able to do my commando course, P Company and selections, you know what I mean? And I passed them all. And I enjoyed them all. I loved it. Do you know what I mean? I genuinely enjoyed it. Do you know what I mean? So I wasn't thinking along those lines. I'm thinking I want to just move to the next step and I want to get there as quickly as possible.
And what was the difference between you and the other lads? The other lads that didn't quite make the cut. What was the difference?
I don't know. There's all different reasons. Guys can come off failed because they're injured. Literally, some guys
will... It can be bad luck.
Yeah, of course it can. And some guys can literally turn around and say, actually, having looked at this isn't genuinely for me. I had a very good friend of mine, a very competent soldier, very good soldier. married, couple of kids, went, got right through into the course and went, this genuinely isn't for me. And fair play to him as well, do you know what I mean? Because to walk off a course like that, you know, he made the decision. He didn't try and bluff his way out. He's sort of like, no, I'm going now. I've had enough. And I show a lot of respect for that. Do you know what I mean?
How much did your physical strength help you in the military? Because, I mean, even now, we've got footage of you boxing, right? You're still an absolute beast of a character, right?
I'm a bit tubby, man. But I enjoy my training. I've always wanted to train. I've always enjoyed what I do, you know, in the gym and all that sort of stuff. It gives me purpose. Look, I lost my way a few years ago. And I only started boxing, my first fight was about 45 years old. Right?
Amazing.
And I literally had lost a bit of direction, and I've been working quite hard on all these overseas contracts and all that sort of stuff. And boxing really put something back into my life that I didn't have anymore. And it was a sense of purpose, it was a direction, it was achievement.
Yeah.
You know, I was forever up against people. I'm never going to reach the top of the tree boxing. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to have a good try getting up there, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's something, again, I've got something progressive in my life.
So was it a bit like, did it have parallels with that time in the military? Back to discipline?
Absolutely, back to being the bottom of the heap again as well.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Back to basics. I am the crow in the ring. I don't know how to fight, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And gradually, you know, the Peacock put a lot of work into me. I went to MTK Marbella. I was really lucky. I've sparred with Hatton. I've done all sorts of really decent stuff boxing-wise. So I was very, very lucky. Yeah. And a lot of that came off the cap.
Tell me about sparring with Hatton. I mean,
he's done the pads right? And I'll tell you what, for a man who sort of like comes up there on me, right? He clouted me, and I was like, boom, where did that come from? You know?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Was that when he was like, you know, off season when he was on the Guinness, or was he match?
He was sort of like 50-50, 1 foot in each camp, like, do you know what I mean?
Thank God, otherwise we wouldn't be having this conversation.
I don't know. I'd love to. Do you know? I'd love to have a go with one of the big guys. Like, do you know what I mean? I'd love to.
Who would you fight?
Well, I'll tell you what, Jake Paul's watching right now. I love Jake Paul. I love him, Jake Paul. I love you, son. You're my snack. You're my snack on the way up the ladder, right? Okay. I'd love to have a move around with Tyson Fury. Just because the man is such his knowledge of boxing is so intense. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. He's going to knock me about. I'm going to learn so much from that. Do you know what I mean?
Well, we talked about the fact that you are a great physical specimen, and there you are again now. You're boxing, but you were a physically tough guy throughout your career in the military. You need a strong body, don't you? You need a strong constitution.
You've got to be robust. It's not above anybody. A lot of this stuff comes from in here.
Well, that's what I want to ask you.
A lot of that stuff comes from in here.
How much of it is mental, and how much of your success in the military was you being fearless, which is the theme of your book?
Yeah, a lot of it is mental preparation, mental state of mind. 1 foot, you know, when you do some of these longer marches, it's 1 foot in front of the other, and it hurts. It does hurt. I'll be a liar to say it doesn't hurt. Do you know what I mean? But it's just having that to keep going. You know, when you go to the jungle, it's monkey see, monkey do. And if monkey stops, monkey goes home. Those are the rules. It's not a difficult thing to do. In your own mind, you've got to be prepared and ready for that. And wanting to go forward. If you don't want to be there, it's going to show up eventually. Do you know what I mean? So that's just the way it is. So, you know, obviously you need to be fairly fit. But I'd say that the average soldier who can pass all his fitness tests with ease, all right, shouldn't have a problem with selection, because selection on these other courses are going to get you up to a stage where you should be able to pass. So that's what I'm saying. The big mistake young lads make is they overtrain for these courses. They turn up, they're twitching, the muscles are like a racehorse. They're like, and they break in the first 5 minutes. No, calm down, do you know what I mean? Calm down with it.
You've faced the ultimate peril, which is the enemy in combat.
Yep.
So how do you handle those situations?
It's the old parachute thing, isn't it? It's knowledge dispels fear. You know, I'm not thinking about necessarily being killed, or I'm not thinking necessarily about what the consequences could be. I'm thinking about what we've prepared for, what our orders said we were to be doing, how we were going to negate things if they went wrong. So you're up, you're ready.
It's an intellectual process.
So it's absolutely it's in you. So by the time that the green light comes on, or whatever it is that's going to signal you're stepping over that line into the world of honkingness, right? Then that is. You know, you're prepared for it. You're ready.
You got a job.
Afterwards, you can come away from some of these things, if it's been a close one, and think to yourself, "Ooh," and you're in the Glad to Be Alive club, then, aren't you? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Have a little bit of disco going on and all that sort of stuff. Do you know what I mean? But you know, the actual job needs to be done. You're trained to do that. You know, if a steeplejack looked at a tower and got scared. He wouldn't go up it, would he? He knows what he's got to do. He puts his ladder on, he ties it up, he goes up it, he clips himself on. He's doing it, he's got his own method of doing it, isn't he? And it's the same with soldiering.
The Glad to Be Alive Club. I think that's the name of your next book, I've got to say. You've shown a lot of respect on social media to former professional boxer and mayor of Kyiv, Vitaly Klitschko, who, along with his brother Vladimir, has joined the front line fighting in Ukraine. I think they actually spoke to Alistair earlier today. Take a look at this.
We need much more weapons. We need much more help. We have to stop the Russians. The whole world surprised how tough Ukrainian army defend our homeland. How, because the Russians have plans in a couple of days to occupy the capital of Ukraine. They have a good plans, but big plans about Ukraine, but our soldiers destroyed all plans of Russians. As former fighters, I tell you, it's very important weapons, but much more in the fight, important spirit. I explain why our army is so strong against Russians. Because Russians army, Russian soldier, fighting for the money. We are Ukrainian, defend our children, defend our families, defend our homeland and our future.
Big Phil, is it almost game over for Vladimir Putin in Ukraine?
No, I don't know. Look, I think it's going to be protracted a little bit longer than what we're thinking here. You know, I've been over to Ukraine myself, and this time last week I was in Ukraine. You know, the resolve of the people was absolutely incredible. You know, from the minute you go over the border, there's farmers digging in, defending the land with pitchforks and that. Do you know what I mean? They're absolutely stood there like that, ready to go. Some of them haven't got guns or nothing. Do you know what I mean? And they're building bunkers on their houses. You know, you got. So I think the resolve of the people is going to be what keeps this thing alive. Almost. Will Putin give up? I don't think he's in a position to give up, but I do think he needs an out. I do think he's searching for an out. I think he realises, I think he must realise, but if he doesn't realise, I mean, there's something seriously wrong with him, right? He must realise by now, I've made a right mess of this. I undercalculated it. I thought all the Russian speakers were going to come on board straight away. They haven't. Do you know what I mean? And he must be looking at it. Now, I'm not a strategic person. I'm a door kicker, all right? So when it comes to sort of like how things play out and the doctrine behind it and all that sort of stuff, that's not really my business. But what is my business is what Klitschko's saying there. The resolve of the people. The resolve of those people fighting is second to none. They're absolutely, you're not sort of like, you're not playing at it there. You are absolutely dug in your council estate, on your turf, defending it from people who are coming in armoured vehicles. That's on another level. Having said goodbye to your missus, right, look, go on, I'll see you in a bit, all right, you go home, you go across the border, I'm going to stay here and I'm fighting. And it's going to be win, lose or draw for me, do you know what I mean? And it's probably not going to be pretty. And they know that, and they're still there. And I think that has been one of the key things in this whole thing. It's been an underestimation by Vladimir Putin that these people would actually stand there and fight. And I've got nothing but respect for the Ukrainian people who are there doing that in their country.
And briefly, some suggestion that the Russian soldiers themselves are not necessarily all on board with the project.
I don't think they are. If you use a press-ganged man, you'll get a press-ganged work, right? They don't. A lot of them don't realise what they're up to. They certainly wouldn't have gauged what they were going to come up against, you know. And you don't just break into these towns. Do you know what I mean? You can shell them, you can do this, you can do that, but they're going to be defended, and it's going to go down to fist and boot in some cases. Do you know what I mean? And that, you know, if you're not fully dedicated to that, you know, they're over there because they've been told to be there, some of them, these conscripts.
And that's different for...
That's a massive difference to the guys going, I'll tell you what, you're in my back garden now, I want you out of here. Do you know what I mean? It's a different fight, isn't it?
Let me just assure you that I will never enter your back garden, OK? only if invited.
I'll catch you on my ring doorbell.
Yeah, too right. And listen, I'll bring some cold beers with me, OK?
Do mate, the barbecue's on.
The greatest privilege to have you on the show.
No, thanks for having me.
Listen, will you come back and join us on the panel?
I'd love to.
Because you're an amazingly interesting man with an amazing life, a great career, which continues to this day.
Absolutely.
Motivational speaking, cadet force, TV shows, books.
Yeah, my own radio station, Force Radio.
Force Radio?
Force Radio is doing extremely well at the moment.
Really? How can you hear Force Radio?
You can download the app, the Force Radio app.
Brilliant.
You can go to forceradio.net. and you can hear my breakfast show, the Stand To Breakfast Show, every morning from 6 till 10.
Is that right?
Every morning from 6 till 10, you'll hear my dulcet tones having a right old pop with life. And it's fun. It's fun. It's positive. It's a great... We're on 1 million minutes a month already, listened.
That's
which is all right, do you know what I mean?
Force
radio. Force, not forces.
No. There you go, singular. Force radio.
Force radio.
Force radio breakfast.
.net.
Well, there you go.
ForceRadio.net.
You talked about being in the Happy to Be Alive Club. Your show should be called the Happy to Be Awake Club.
Absolutely, yeah. We've got Who Dares Sins, we've got all sorts on there. No, it's all right, I'll tell you, we have a good laugh on there.
Now you're talking.
It's a good place to be.
Giving Eamon Holmes a run for its money.
Absolutely.
Listen, Phil, what a treat to have you. Do come and see us again soon. Lots more to come in the show. US News with Kinsey Schofield live from the Hollywood Hills. The Oscars have got even more woke. Find out why shortly. Also, keep those emails coming in, mark@gbnews.uk. And we'll be asking, is it greedy and selfish to have a second home? Is it immoral? That in our news agenda, plus another game show. See you shortly.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
Make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows. Every day, we ask the questions
That you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for...
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and every weekday we bring you The Briefing live from 9:30 a.m. The stories, analysis, and live debate that you need to hear.
Quite right, Tom, of course.
Was this something that had been considered at all?
Difficult to answer.
Gas-guzzling helicopters circling. Noise is being made here.
Joe Biden walking out.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. on GB News.
Join me, Gloria De Piero, Monday to Thursday at noon for The Briefing. We go to the parts of Parliament that you won't see elsewhere. Plus, there's exclusive interviews with MPs from all parties.
But quite often, they paper over the real truth. Why does a working class lad like you join the Tories?
That's a good question.
Don't miss it, Monday to Thursdays at noon on GB News.
Now, we've got a very special show coming up tomorrow. It's Mother's Day, and what better way to celebrate than appearing on GB News? So what I want to do is ask you to send a picture of your mum on the chance to be featured on Selfie Sunday. That's right, send in pictures of your mum, because every Sunday we do a thing called Selfie Sunday. That's where you send me pictures of your good selves, because I want to get to know you better. So tomorrow it's Mother's Day. Let's do a Selfie Sunday special for mum. Send in your pictures of your mum. And all we need is her name, of course. And you can send those to me right now, mark@gbnews.uk. Anything you send in tonight, we will save for tomorrow's show. We're, of course, back on air at 9 o'clock tomorrow, but lots more to pack in for the final 25 minutes of the show. Let's head to the Hollywood Hills and Los Angeles to discuss this week's Showbiz news with the queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield. Hi, Kinsey.
Wow, you guys even put it in the lower third, Queen of Showbiz. It's official. I really appreciate that.
It's a fact. Look, the evidence is there every Saturday night. Kinsey, really tough news to start with. The death of a drumming legend.
Yeah, Taylor Hawkins of the Foo Fighters. I mean, he has to be probably the second most recognized member of the Foo Fighters. Am I right? He's got that charming, smile across his face that, like, his hair always looks like it was blown apart by a tornado. So handsome, so charming. He just was, you know, how they talk about when people die, how they lit up a room. Truly, it defines this young man. I mean, I say young, he was 50 years old. It does look like he passed there. It does look like it was drug related, according to reports coming from Colombia. He was on tour with the Foo Fighters. They had a show last night that was canceled, obviously, due to this. There were supposed to be the headliners for Lollapalooza Brazil, and that was supposed to happen on Sunday. Obviously, that's up in the air at this point. But law enforcement there saying that there was drug paraphernalia found within his hotel room at the Four Seasons. Obviously, it's going to take several weeks, over a month at least, until we get the toxicology reports back. But that is what they're saying, that there was alcohol found in the room, perhaps some drugs found in the room. And, you know, Mark McGrath from Sugar Ray said he's heartbroken. Juliette Lewis, who's an actress and a musician, describing him as humble and saying the universe got this one wrong.
A devastating story indeed. Kinsey, let's talk about the Oscars, because the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences has announced that from 2024, films nominated for Best Picture will need to jump through two of the following four hoops. The film must feature underrepresented groups, either in substantial roles, the overall ensemble, or in its narrative themes. A certain number of key crew members must be female and/or queer, non-white or disabled. The film's distributor must employ apprentices or paid interns from underrepresented groups, whatever they might be. And finally, the company must have female, queer, non-white and/or disabled executives in its marketing, publicity, or distribution teams. My head hurts after saying all of that. But what's going on?
Well, to me, this is just a lazy way for the Oscars to try to push the Oscars so white controversy onto the productions and the filmmakers themselves. You know, they've been criticized over the last few years that they are dominant in awarding white individuals, predominantly male individuals. So to me, this is their way of pushing this off and making it the production's job to hire these people, so that if the award ceremony ends up to be predominantly white, they can say this was Hollywood, not us. But yeah, who is actually being underrepresented when the majority of people in the United States that are Caucasian are refusing to mark what their race is when they apply for the job, because they know that if they're white, it moves them back to the to the back of the line.
Yeah, let's bring my panel in on this one. I'm delighted to say that Charlie Peters is with us tonight, Laura Dodsworth, and my good friend, the brilliant Sam Dowler. Charlie Peters, can I start with you? We're all for diversity in filmmaking, so perhaps this is the way to go.
Absolutely not, no. And we shouldn't put quotas and percentages and fractions on the production of art. It should be about flair and creativity, and not limiting producers and creatives and how they can direct their mental capacity according to set criteria they must fulfill on a piece of paper. I think it's absolutely baffling, and it's part of a grander culture we see now, where there is a huge gap between what audiences want and what critics have to award and support.
But Charlie, won't this fix the issue of underrepresented groups in Hollywood?
Underrepresented? I mean, who's underrepresented? I don't think that reflects the reality of cinema, television, or even advertising. You'd be hard-pressed to find any piece of media today which reflects kind of all-white or all-male cast. Even historical programming finds a way to imagine alternative scenarios whereby there are Black Tudors or Vikings are somehow, half African. It's baffling, really.
Laura?
Yeah, I think it's kind of artificial social engineering, and that doesn't really belong in true creativity. So I think everybody would welcome seeing diversity. That's not even a question. But I spoke to a scriptwriter for a project I'm working on recently who said that they couldn't set a film in a particular village because the village was all white. And that's why he wanted to set the film, because it's where he grew up. But he couldn't because they have a quota, a diversity quota to meet. So there's a way in which this kind of social engineering, however well-intentioned or not, does influence the creative output. The best thing about the Oscars was when Ricky Gervais hosted it and ripped shreds out of it. I think it's just becoming increasingly irrelevant, and it's how they're going to kill true creativity in storytelling.
Sam Dowler?
Well, first of all, I think that was the Golden Globes, not the Oscars. But I do think that it can be stifling, and what Laura just said about not being able to use a particular village. Well, obviously that can't be right. With the Oscars specifically, of course, there's been one, maybe two female winners of Best Director, and only one winner of only one black woman to win Best Actress, and that was Halle Berry. So obviously things need to change with that, but you can't force the change. Of course, if 90% of the films are directed by men and only 10% by women, of course the majority are going to be the majority of the nominees are going to be male. So until it changes across the board, I think it's slightly ridiculous of the Oscars to try and place these sort of things onto what films can and can't be in the running, when that's obviously not the case when it comes to like production companies and things like that. It's a bit silly, and like Kinsey said, it's sort of passing the buck a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with you, Sam. We all want diversity in television, in film, in all art forms, but I just wonder whether this will be doing more harm than good if it's a blunt and very divisive tool. What's this going to do for the ratings of the Oscars? Because every year they seem to drop, don't they, Kinsey? What do you think about the idea that if they go woke, the Oscars will go broke?
I think that they have. 2 years ago, they were considered a fail at just slightly over 23 million viewers. Last year, they just had over 10 million viewers. So I do think we're seeing that decline. Having Wanda Sykes, Regina Hall, and Amy Schumer tomorrow night, I think that it will be exciting, invigorating. And they say they're going to burn bridges. They're going to burn everybody. They said that it's going to be kind of almost like a roast. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. But yeah, they are declining. How relevant are they? And Seth Rogen, who's a comedian here, recently said that too. Like, why should normal people watch us award each other and slap each other on the back? What does that matter to them?
Kinsey Schofield, I look forward to catching up in a week's time. You tick a lot of boxes for us here on Mark Dolan tonight, mainly being the best entertainment journalist on the planet. Check out Kinsey's brilliant royal website, To Die For Daily. She's got a book about Princess Diana coming out later this year as well, and she'll be in the studio in June. So we're looking forward to that one. Lots more to come after this in our news agenda. Is having a second home morally wrong? Is it selfish? We'll discuss that. Plus, another great British game show. And tonight, Guess That Fish. Find out more after this.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows. Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Lots more to get through in a short few minutes. Still with me, my amazing panel of Sam Dowler, Laura Dodsworth and Charlie Peters. But we're going to try to do this as much as possible on the programme, where we check out a video that's gone viral. So first up, what do you think when I say robotics? Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator, Optimus Prime saving the world, R2-D2 in Star Wars? Well, scientists in Tokyo have trumped all of that. Take a look at this. I've got to say, it needs a bit of work. They've got to get back to the drawing board. James Dyson, eat your heart out. They're peeling a banana. In their defence, it's not as easy as it looks. I always squish the end when peeling mine. And actually, to make it even more underwhelming, it needed help turning the banana around. And this is sped up 4 times, by the way. This is a sped up video. So don't worry, sci-fi friends. It looks a little off becoming self-aware and taking over the world. There we are. Well, look, we'll do a viral video wherever we can. Now, we've got a big question for you, which is whether having a second home is morally wrong. Of course, lots of communities, particularly places like Devon and Cornwall, have seen locals unable to live in the area in which they grew up because of second homes from rich Londoners and the like. So should local authorities look at the issue of second homes? Is it selfish? Is it greedy? What do you think? Panel, Charlie, what do you reckon?
I just want a first home, let alone a second one. But at the same time, I think we're passing the buck onto second homeowners here. Instead, councils should look at radical house development, some liberalising of planning law to let more homes be built. But actually, the reason why people don't want this to happen is because their cash cow asset, their home, which they've developed over 30 years, would plummet enormously if that happened. And so instead of doing a kind of an alternative approach that everyone wins from, they tackled second homeowners.
Yeah, and so you think the answer to the housing crisis is not to punish people with a second home, but just to build more?
Build more, yeah. Build to victory.
Do you not think that it's detrimental to local communities when people come from elsewhere in the summer holidays, Easter holidays, and turn up and start buying organic jam and craft beer?
I think be careful what you wish for. I think many of these local communities very much rely on lots of nice people from London turning up and buying their craft beer and their jams and their oils, etc. Without them, they would suffer enormously. It might affect the style and the kind of atmosphere of the local town, village, or seaside retreat in Cornwall for a short while, but without it, they'd be significantly poorer.
Perhaps having a second home isn't selfish, but perhaps people that have one should pay for it.
Well, my family are all in a seaside town in Cornwall, a place called Loo, where they run the patty shop and the cake shop and one of the ice cream parlours.
Oh, wow.
And like in Devon as well, where I have family, like half the town is empty during certain times of the year, and of course that affects the local economy, and so it's happening more and more. So I think there should be rules put in place, especially to do with Airbnb, for example. So I think the rules need to change. Like with second homeowners, it's all very well to go down there just a couple of months a year, but make sure it's full the rest of the time as well if you possibly can.
Yeah, I mean,
price out the game.
What would you, if you were going to address the issue, how would that manifest itself? Would they pay a second home tax, do you think?
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, who knows how to... I couldn't possibly say, I'm not an economics expert, but I would think that something would need to be done because, as I said, it does affect. Like, you can't have a ghost town for half a year and then so busy you can't cope with it for the rest of the time. It's ridiculous.
Laura, there's a difference, isn't there, between someone that perhaps owns a rental property, which can be their pension, it's an investment or a business, and just literally having a home in a city like London, Liverpool, Manchester, or Edinburgh or Cardiff, or actually, having one or two. I mean, if some people haven't got even one home, as Charlie said, can this be justified?
Yes, of course it can. We're allowed to have private property. Well, first of all, I'd love to have a second home. Don't have one. So caveat before anyone thinks that I'm going to defend second homes because I've got one. I don't. I mean, obviously, there's a difference between having a portfolio for, income or pension or holidays, but who hasn't rented a holiday property?
Yeah.
I have. I've been to Airbnbs. I had a nice time. I liked it, and it's also part of the economy. Some people, you can't rely on a state pension. Some people, their pension and their future is tied up in their homes. If you do have a pension, some of your investment may well be in UK property. Is that selfish? Of course it's not selfish.
It's another asset, I guess. And I would agree that actually Airbnb has democratised travel in this country, because certainly with my family, we've been able to have a few days at the seaside, and we could afford that by going to an Airbnb and maybe paying 75 quid or 100 quid a night, as opposed to 200, 300 quid a night in a hotel. So there you go. Well, look, it's all about opinions, isn't it? It's time now to play the Great British Game Show. Apparently the cost of the British chippy is going up and up because people reject eating other species of fish because they don't know what they are. They're afraid of something that isn't cod or skate. So tonight we're going to go under the sea and find out if you at home and my panel in the studio can identify all of these species of fish. That's right, we're going to play a game of Guess the Fish. And let's start with fish number one. What is this? Flying through the air.
That's a killer whale.
An orca.
Let's have a look.
Humpback.
Orca.
Let me tell you, it is not a fish. It's a trick question. It's a killer whale, which is a mammal. Yeah. And what a mammal it is. That's a remarkable creature. How about this? What is this creature?
Seahorse.
That's definitely.
It does look like a seahorse, but the team, the boffins here at Mark Dolan tonight, have identified it as a puffer fish. A puffer fish. It does look like a seahorse.
A skinny one.
Is this all trick questions?
Right.
Can I tell you that we are responsible for a hashtag epic fail? Can you tell I haven't been in the sea for a while?
That look like a puffer fish?
That was a seahorse. And Sam gets a bonus point for us messing up. OK, how about our next fish?
Nemo. It's a clownfish.
It is indeed a marlin.
A bad drawing of
Nemo.
Of a clownfish.
Yeah, it's not very well drawn, is it? That's not Pixar's finest. How about this one?
This is nothing.
What is this fish?
That's a catfish.
That is a catfish. Well done. Lovely whiskers. I wish I could grow those. OK, next up, I'll have a little bit of a look under the sea at that creature.
I'm a head shark.
Well done. Blimey. Have you been to Orlando or something? SeaWorld?
I'm a quizzer, though, to be fair.
OK.
That's a pufferfish.
That's a seahorse, I think.
Now, what is that when it's at home?
Pufferfish.
There's your pufferfish. I thought it was a hedgehog. I thought it was a drowning
hedgehog. It's a sea hedgehog.
OK, I can't believe... OK,
that's
what about...
Michael Fish.
By the way, I wouldn't mind eating him with chips and some vinegar.
No, I would.
I'll rephrase that.
It's illegal.
OK, how about...
him now.
Now you're talking.
So
OK, what's that?
That's an eel, isn't it?
Yes, and can I have a bit more?
Eel.
Can I have an adjective for the eel?
A conger eel?
No, go again. An adjective?
Jelly.
A giant eel.
Can you describe? It's a very special kind of...
Is it a moray?
It's a very shocking...
Moray.
It's a very shocking eel.
Oh.
Oh, electric eel.
Boom. OK, next up. Let's have a look. We've got one more.
Not a nice friend, that.
That's a tuna, isn't it?
Is it a piranha?
It is actually... It's Jaws from the movie.
Oh, looking great.
He's lost his fin, hasn't he?
Yeah.
It can't be.
OK, next fish.
That's Jaws from the movie. What's going on?
Our next fish. We got any more?
How many fish do you have, Mark?
OK. How long have we got, folks? Brilliant stuff. Look, thank you so much to my amazing panel. The points go to Sam for our wonderful fish game. We're back tomorrow for more fun at 9 o'clock. Thank you for your company. Selfie Sunday tomorrow. Pictures of mum. See you then.
Looking ahead to tomorrow's weather, and the UK is looking cloudy and murky in the east first thing, but clearer skies further west. Let's take a look at the details. Similar to recent days, it will be fine in the southeast of England with barely a cloud in the sky. Chilly to start, but temperatures quickly lifting. Meanwhile, in the southeast, it's going to be much cloudier than recently, especially to start. Some brighter breaks are expected to develop later. Back in the west and for Wales, here we will again have largely sunny skies with only a little fair weather cloud bubbling up. Northwest England will also have plenty of warm and sunny weather with temperatures starting quite low but jumping up quickly in the spring sunshine. Light winds will add to the warm feel. It is a different story in the northeast, however. Here there will be more cloud than we have seen those some recent days, and this will linger around some North Sea coastal parts. Parts of eastern Scotland will also have some of that nagging cloud, keeping things cooler here. Elsewhere across the country, it is looking largely warm and sunny again. Northern Ireland will also have largely clear skies. There'll be a touch of frost at first, but once the spring sunshine gets to work, those temperatures will climb. The thickest low cloud in the east should burn away this morning, and there will be more cloud here generally. And that is how the weather is shaping up during tomorrow morning.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,